One other thing we didn't go over is my distinction. It's when I deconstructed the word setting in Circle of Hands. The distinction between backdrop, situation, and scene. The argument being, you can see what I'm doing right now, right? I'm talking about characters in settings, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
And how a person attacks or is confronted by the rules of figuring out what character they're going to be playing in the setting.
Mm-hmm.
So I said settings don't exist.
Yeah, I just actually read your setting now essay 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay, yeah. The idea being that you never encounter the setting, you only encounter situations which are themselves supposed to be examples of the setting.
Mm.
But the setting actually, as you experience it, is produced only by authentic situational experiences.
Mm.
So if you have a set of authentic situational experiences, you're going to end up perceiving the whole as a setting and appreciating it as such. And this is related to a lot of what I wrote about in Sorcerer and Sword when I pointed out that all of the great sword and sorcery writers, old and new, wrote a bunch of cool stories first because they liked the dude, and then said, ooh, where are these cities relative to one another, and drew a map.
Right.
And or gave it a name, or started characterizing the setting as such. So they may have had a very strong aesthetic in mind when they were writing the original stories, but as I say, the interest in calling it and the genuinely thinking of it as a setting was an emergent property of having authentic situations in it already. So role-playing, I think, is precisely the same. We can talk about setting, but we should remember that we're not actually going to have one until after we've played a while, and everybody is now validated in thinking of it that way. And that the genuine content of it is going to be from the situations of play. To drill into a situation of play, you're talking about a location, you're talking about a backstory, you're talking about characters who want things and do things, you're talking about, how high is the parapet, how you're talking about what's the role for encountering some critter when you're in these woods versus that swamp. All these things are the situation of this, you can call it scenario if you wanted. Then subsets of that which we actually experience and play where the character is doing something, those are scenes.
Gotcha.
So once you have those, then setting grows. It blossoms and expands to fill the backdrop. That's the thing. The backdrop is basically becoming more and more rich. When we look up from our situations that we've played, we feel we can actually see the backdrop now.
Mm-hmm.
And so people, I think the word setting causes a lot of trouble because it almost presupposes that it was there first. You look at the setting and now you make up situations in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why in Circle of Hands, I provided the backdrop as its own thing and said, you're really only going to feel that and know it, make it your own, find it to be a real part of the experience of play, insofar as you hit these situations hard. I'm only giving you the kind of backdrop information you need so you can make good situations.
Mm.
But realize that the setting isn't going to be powerful until you do.
Right.
So, in that sense, I'm talking not just about what these things are, but I'm talking about the pedagogy of what they are. How do we teach them? How do we make it happen at the table? How do we make this enjoyable at the table?
Right.
And So when it comes to something like Kinfolk, I would be very, very interested in the way you come up with each of the 5 sessions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about a lot.
Right. So anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it's such an arbitrary number, and I don't want it to be railroady. I don't want to try to use mechanics to force people into a dramatic arc. So what can I do to make sure that they are getting to they have all the tools to do it for themselves?
Right.
I'm not sure.
Arc goes here rather than step into this arc.
Right.
It's a tricky thing.
Yeah. So one thing that was really important to me was talking about resolution. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been reading about how screenwriters and comic book writers write action scenes, and realizing that setup and payoff is kind of exactly what you were talking about, and that my resolution for Kinfolk lacked any setup. It was all just payoff and then let's fill in a setup, payoff and then let's fill in a setup, and none of it really probably would have ever achieved any sort of drama because there's nothing invested other than a number on a die.
Yeah. Yeah.